Hello and welcome back. In this video, we'll understand how to establish connections with various connectors using UiPath Integration Service. As you may know, Integration Service provides a large and growing catalog of pre-built connectors for popular applications such as Salesforce, Slack, Microsoft Office 365, SAP, ServiceNow, Google Workspace, and many more. By deploying these connectors, we can significantly simplify the integration process for any automation task. In our previous video, we discussed an enterprise onboarding process use case that we want to automate using Integration Service. In this video, we'll be showing how to establish the connections for this use case. Before we dive into establishing a connection for a specific connector, let's first understand the high-level steps involved in creating a connection for any connector. First, we need to access the Automation Cloud platform. Once we're on the platform, we can navigate to the Integration Service. The first step in establishing a connection is to navigate to the Connectors tab in Integration Service. From there, we can select the connector that corresponds to the application that we want to integrate. Alternatively, we can use the search box to easily find the connector that we're looking for. The search feature performs searches in both the names and descriptions of the connectors. For example, if we type marketing, we'll see a list of connectors for marketing-oriented services. Next, we'll need to follow the authentication process. This may vary depending on the connector that we're working with, but Integration Service provides centralized and simplified authentication across different security protocols such as OAuth. Once we've completed the authentication process, we can easily create or modify connections to multiple systems, and connections can be reused across systems to save us time and effort. It's important to note that some connectors may require additional permissions or access. So, you should work with your IT team to ensure that you have the necessary privileges. When exploring UiPath's connectors, remember to check the documentation page for valuable information on each connector's functionalities and establishing connections. To access detailed information about a specific connector, click the View Connector documentation link on its page. It's highly recommended to consult this documentation for additional guidance. Overall, UiPath Integration Service connectors provide a powerful and streamlined way to integrate popular applications with our automation processes. So, without further ado, let's dive in and establish the connections for our use case. First, we'll start with the OneDrive connector. We'll search for Microsoft OneDrive, and here we're able to see all of the connections created for Microsoft OneDrive and SharePoint connector. To add a new connection, we just have to press on the Add Connection button. To create a connection, we'll need to sign in to our Microsoft account. We may have already been logged into our account, but please keep in mind that in order to establish a connection for OneDrive and SharePoint, some scopes are requested by the connector, and we'll have to work with our IT team to get these privileges for our user and the application. Next, let's create a connection for Salesforce. Here, we have the Salesforce connector, and then click the Add Connection button. And now we're being asked to select the environment. We'll choose the production environment again for Salesforce. To authenticate, we must have the Salesforce Sales Cloud Enterprise Edition or a Professional Edition with API support. Now let's click the Connect option. We'll log in with the correct username. We can see that the connector is requesting specific access. We'll press the Allow button, and the connection will be created successfully. Now for the ServiceNow connector. Same step, clicking the Add Connection button. Here, we're being asked for a site URL, client ID, and client secret. So, what we have to do first in ServiceNow, we'll need to search for plugins and make sure that the OAuth plugin is active. Here we can see that OAuth 2.0 is already installed. Before we proceed further, let's get a brief overview of OAuth. OAuth is a standard protocol used for secure authorization in modern applications and websites. In the context of UiPath integration services, OAuth allows third-party applications to access a user's UiPath resources, such as robots or workflows, without revealing the user's credentials. By using OAuth, the user can grant permission to the third-party application to access their resources, and an access token is issued, which can be used for a limited time. OAuth improves security and user control, as well as enabling better integration with third-party applications. And then we'll have to go to the application registry. An application registry is a central repository that stores information about applications or services. In the context of UiPath integration services and ServiceNow, the application registry is where the endpoints for external clients are registered and managed. An endpoint is a URL that exposes a specific service or resource. To create an endpoint for external clients, we need to navigate to the ServiceNow application registry and create a new entry with the appropriate details. By registering and managing endpoints in the application registry, organizations can ensure that only authorized clients have access to their resources, improving security and control. Moving ahead, let's click the New button to create an endpoint for external clients. The name field is required here. Let's give it a name such as Test Connection and specify the redirect URL, which can be found in the ServiceNow documentation. Finally, let's click on Submit to create the endpoint. When we open the created endpoint, we'll find the client ID and client secret, which are required to establish the connection. We'll copy and paste the needed info in the corresponding field. And finally, we'll click on Connect. We'll be asked to press Allow to authorize the connection, and the connection will be established successfully. And the last connection that is required for Slack. We can see that the connector is in preview. Wondering what is this preview? Well, it simply indicates that the connector is available in public preview. This means that it's still being tested and it may not be fully functional yet. But don't worry, you can still select which connectors you want to be displayed on the screen by using the connector catalog filter. The available checkboxes correspond to 3 types of connectors: official, preview, and custom. Official connectors are generally available and they've been fully released, meaning they've undergone thorough testing and are fully functional. Preview connectors, as mentioned earlier, are still in the testing phase, and they may have some limitations. Custom connectors are created using the connector builder, which allows you to create a custom connector tailored to your specific needs. To be able to create a connection for Slack, we'll need to be a member or a guest of selected workspace in Slack. Let's click the Add Connection. We can see that the connector is requesting permission to access the social Slack workspace. We'll press Allow, and the connection will be created. We highly recommend considering the use of available connectors as part of your automation journey. As we saw in this demo, connectors can make your life easier and they can speed up the development process. So, as we saw in this demo, connectors can make your life easier and speed up the development process. So, the next time you're building automation, be sure to check if a connector is available that can help you achieve your goals. Thank you for watching and happy automation!